Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the section for both of my columns. I'm going to create a div right here and a div right below it. And these two divs are going to be my columns. So in this case, I want to make both of these divs how wide? 35%. That's how big each of the columns are in our design here. So each column is going to be 35%. Knowing that each one's going to be 35%, we can just come in here and say div width 35%. But what is going to happen when we do that? It's going to make this Fakestagram header only 35% of the width, and that's technically not what we want, right? That's basura. Yeah, that doesn't look good. So let's actually get rid of that, and we're going to take a new approach to this. Now, if you want to style these two divs differently from this div, we need to give each one its own name tag. And so to give everything its own name tag, you give it what's known as a class. So in this case, we're going to say div class equals header, like that. And we're going to change this style here from div to dot header. Now, I did a few things here that are a little funky. I want you to pay attention to them. What I did is I added an attribute right here to this div, and I gave it a class of what? Class equals header. And so if you want to select only this div in your CSS, you just put dot in front of it and then the name of the class, which in this case is header. So what this rule does is it goes through your body and it finds anything that is tagged with the class equals header. Oh, this div has a name tag of header. Okay, give it these styles. And that's what the class does for you here. Dot header means it looks for a class. Now, I want both of these divs to be styled the same, so I'm going to give both of them a class equals column. Now, since I gave them both a class of column, what do I need to put here to start to style both of those divs? So I'll just say dot column, and then I will open these up. And how wide did we want them to be? 35%. Width is 35%. Let's make their background Dodger blue. And let's make their height 350 pixels, which is an exact height. It'll be this height on everything. So if I make it 350 pixels and I save this and click refresh, let's see how it looks. Oh, would you look at that? There's one of my columns. But it's too close to the left. Notice that? Let's push it a little further off the left by giving it a margin of 5%. And this is margin around the top, bottom, left, and right. So if I refresh this, it'll look like this. Does everybody have that? If you don't have that, I want you to check your partner's code and see if you can get them to look like this. Make sure your file is saved and make sure you have this column style right here and that you've given the class equals column to two divs at the bottom of your page. You want to put it on Slack? Yeah, I'll put it on Slack right now. Notice here one of the problems with our code is that check out our columns. We have a column here. If I pop it into the big screen and I click refresh, look at where are our columns? They're on top of each other. Yeah. Why? Why are they on top of each other?
Because you didn't say you wanted both side by side.
But I made them both 35%. Why don't they just like post up next to each other?
Because you didn't tell them to do that.
You're right. We did not tell them to do that. By default, all divs display themselves block style. Here's what that means. Block style is this. Really quickly. block elements stack on top of each other like this. This red background right here is block, which means that this one, if I put a block there, it takes up the entire width of the page. So if I make this big real quick so you can all see, it takes up the width from one side all the way to the other, so nothing else can stack up to the left or right of it. It takes up its entire row. If you're an inline element, then you stack to the left and right of each other, and you don't take up their entire row. So block elements display on top of each other, and inline elements display to the left and right of each other. So if we go back and we tell our elements to display inline, then they will look like this. Let me show you. Now all we're going to do is we're going to come down to these columns, and we're going to display inline dash block. And if you save this and refresh, it should look like this. 2 columns directly next to each other. If you display them inline, an inline block, they stack to the right and left of each other. If you display just block like this, then they stack on top of each other and they take up the entire row that they're in. And in fact, if you check the inspect element on this and you look at what's going on here, you can actually see how much space they take up. So this one, if I highlight it, notice how it's taking up all this space, the entire row. All of that highlighted orange stuff is all the space this element is taking up. So that's all of its margin. Its margin goes all the way across the page. And same with this one right here. They take up their entire row. But if I tell them to display inline block, and I refresh this, now they only take up as much space as their content, like this. And it's much easier to see which one goes where. But notice here, we still have one more problem we need to fix. Yeah, none of these gaps are equal. And that's because we didn't set the margins to be the correct amount. So to do that, right now our margin is 5% all around, but we actually don't want that. What we want is the space to the left of each one to be 10%, and that will leave the space to the right of the last one to also be 10%. So we're going to come in here and we're going to say margin dash left is 10%. And if you refresh that, like this, it should look perfectly centered, both on this screen and on the big screen, like so. If yours are not centered, then that's the fixing we need to do. If yours are centered, you are good to go. So take a few seconds, see if you can get that working, and I'll come around and help you out. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to change these backgrounds from Dodger Blue. Instead, we're going to make them a picture. So I'm going to go find a picture of myself on the internets. There we go. I found a picture of me. I'm going to take this picture. I'm going to copy this link at the top. And I'm going to, instead of saying background Dodger Blue, I'm going to say background URL. And then in parentheses, paste in the link and save it. And then I'm going to tell the background size, like this, to be 100%. And if I do that and I click refresh, I should get my pictures right there. Now on this screen, it doesn't look very good. But if I come here to the big screen, I press refresh, would you look at that? Now my Fakestagram is starting to work. This looks pretty good. The only thing I would like to change, I would like to have 2 different photos here. And that is the very next and last step for this lesson for today. All I did is I changed the background from Dodger Blue to background URL, parentheses, and then I pasted in the link right there. Then I said the background size should be 100% of its container, which happens to be these little divs. Now you'll notice it repeats itself here. We can change that, but for the time being, I don't want to. So go ahead and see if you can get your picture or any picture up on your Fakestagram. Now, last but not least, we're going to take this image, and instead of putting it in both of these boxes, I want that image to be over here and another image to be over there. So I'm going to come in here, and I cannot use class, or I can use class. I'm not going to use class this time. I'm going to give each one its own ID. ID equals left pick, and ID equals right pick. And when you use IDs, you can specify only one thing. IDs like this only refer to one element on the page. Whereas with the class of column, I can select a couple things on a page. With an ID attribute, you can only select one thing with your ID attribute. So I can only select either this left one or the right one. And all I need to do to select a left pick or right pick is I do the same thing I did up here with this column, except I'm going to say hashtag right dash pick and hashtag left dash pick. And I'm going to set both of their background URLs to whatever I want. When you want to select a class in CSS, you use dot. When you want to select an ID in CSS, you use hashtag. And so here, now I can say the right pick should have a background URL of that picture, and my left pick should have a different background picture of me. So I'm going to copy that, paste it right here, and I'm going to get one more picture, and our Fakestagram will be done for the day. So I'm going to get, let's get this one right here. That's the one you want? Oh, that's from my Twitter account? Nice. Let's use this one. Hey, that's me. That's me. Yes, I know. I was very young back then. Now I'm an old man. Old man Aster. And if I save this and click refresh, let's check it out. Oh, yeah. Now all we need to do is give both of them a background size of 100%, and we should be done. I'm going to post all of this on Slack as soon as I do this last part, and we will call it our lesson for today. Sound good? Thank you for listening, students. And we can go ahead and take out both the background stuff out of these columns. Save it, refresh, check it out. We starting to look good. Now, obviously, I have some work I can do here to fix this because it's repeating itself. But other than that, we have our two columns that represent as close as we really want to get in the beginning to the Instagram page we took a look at this morning, or like about an hour ago. Right here. Very similar to the way Instagram does their layouts. This is the exact same thing. We got a header. We have some columns with pictures in it. So don't worry if this is a little bit over your head. You did a great job today. I'm going to paste this code into Slack. If you have any questions, let me know.